Political filmmaking, I do love it. I do love it for that reason, but it's very polarizing, and I want to get back to sort of the essence of why I fell in love with movies, which
some people, they'll pick up a camera, they'll call themselves directors, but you studied this, you graduated NYU. So with your background, with your knowledge, whenever you're filming a subject like President Trump, are you looking at him as a politician? Do you see him as a character in a story? And if you do, how do you separate the two to get the feel and the look that you're trying to accomplish with your art?
So I didn't interview him, but we actually made a choice not to interview Trump for that film, but we interviewed his family, Hulk Hogan. It might have been Hulk Hogan's last film before he died, Frank Stallone. I've been around famous people. My stepfather won 2 Emmy Awards. My brother's a pretty well-known actor. I grew up with celebrities in the house and just going to dinner, and I've been around them. And honestly, there's some people that get into film just so they can hang out with these people and like kiss their ass. And I honestly could care less. I'll tell you something funny. I mean, look, I respect them. I think I'm tickled. They're in the movie and everything, and it's great. But at the end of the day, my job is to tell a story and to move the people watching it. So everything is an ingredient in this soup to make it the most amazing soup that changes people's lives when they eat it. That's how I see it. And it doesn't matter who the ingredients are. Like I did a music video for Sandy June where I hired this real shrimper, this guy who worked on a shrimping boat. His name's Wookie Duet. That's his name. Amazing. And he's kind of hunched over from shrimping and, just like a real guy. And I have just as much awe for him, for this guy who worked on a shrimp boat, as I did when I shook President Trump's hand. To me, no one is better or less than the other because that's it. So it's great to work with famous people, but it's not driving me. I think that's one annoying thing about filmmaking is that you have to have somebody who's like A-list or to sell your movie or B-list. It's like incredibly annoying reality. I just wish that, you could sell a movie just as easily with people you've never seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem like quite a bit of a bottleneck. I had another friend of mine on the show that's working on getting into this same field. And that's what he was saying he was running into, is getting his film to move forward, was trying to find basically an A-lister or someone with that clout that can kind of carry it into the imaginations of all of us folks here at home consuming this content.
But some of those people got to where they are because of how amazing they are, and when you work with talent at that level, you have a wow moment because you really see how they got to that point. Because, I remember when I was working with Chris Meloni on the National Lampoon movies and I was editing him, and we were in my apartment in Brooklyn editing, and he's a big guy. We're in my teeny little closet editing room. It's pretty funny, but he's a comedic genius. And I could just see it was so refreshing to work with that kind of talent from an editing point of view, because most actors who don't know what they're doing, you end up looking at piles of garbage in the editing room. And this guy was you could just tell he, solid chops, solid acting chops, and so much to work with. Like the actors like that give you so much to work with in the editing room. Like every take they do, they give you a different expression. So yeah, there are people that got to that level for a reason.
That's so great to hear. It is really neat to see and hear behind the scenes type stuff. I had a very, very brief interaction in the Hollywood sphere, and who knows, may end up kind of going back into the same type of work that I was doing before, but health events, life events, things like that, I kind of got away from it. I was doing mostly like set medic and safety, security consulting, things like that. And it was fun. I really enjoyed it. The big major project that I was on didn't end up going because of COVID. So it's kind of right around kind of that same
Yeah.
time frame.
Yeah.
And then I did some COVID safety officer type stuff after that, but then I just had to prioritize my health and things like that. But it's a fascinating world to me. And I think to
Yeah,
so many others,
COVID, I had a project during COVID that shut down, and we shut it down pretty much because the Screen Actors Guild, there was so much added cost because of COVID. It added 20% of our budget, and we were like, "How can we we can't do this," so we just didn't do it, you know?
wow, that's wild. So COVID kind of seems like it was a big turning point in your kind of like career progression because so much stuff kind of slowed down, shot down, and then you've moved into, all right, cool. I'm filming Scott LoBaido. I'm working on these projects. And then at any point of these things, did you have agents, friends, mentors, anything like that that were kind of like trying to stop you, guide you away from it? And if so, what was your moment where you're like, nope, I'm doing it anyway. I'm going full send. I'm doing Scott's documentary, President Trump's documentary.
Yeah, I mean, I lost a lot of friends in the film industry because of my politics, and that happened around COVID and after COVID, and it's still happening. I mean, because I feel like for some reason, the people in the film industry are the most politically vocal, it seems on social media. So I don't know why that is, but I would just hear just some vile stuff from people and I would just get rid of them. I don't want to know people who wish harm on police officers or military or anything like that, and or the good people of this country that are hardworking Americans that just want to live in safety, you know, that so I lost a lot of people that way, but I still have some very good liberal friends that are in the film industry that I still work with. On some of my projects, they can't credit themselves, you know, obviously, but there's some really good people that are like lifelong friends. And again, I'm chilling out now on politics. I'm not so interested in politics as much anymore. Like, I want to go back to just regular, pure cinema. But the problem is my dad was an artist from Rome, Italy. He was a sculptor, and he actually incorporated politics into his artwork, and he always said that I need to be political. If you're in the arts and you're dealing with subjects that are contemporary, that are like that people can really grab onto it. So you asked me, like, when I was filming The Relentless Patriot with Scott LoBaido, I was driving around filming him and he was in this truck, you know, his truck that has like giant American flags on it and a skull on the front. I mean, it's just insane. And I'm like driving around, everyone's staring at us, but it was like, but it was such an awesome feeling because I'm right in the middle of history and my camera's rolling at that moment. You know what I mean? Like, it just, like,
For real.
that's what my dad was talking about because, like, I'm making a film about something that just happened in current events or politics, and, like, within months, it's on the screen. So, like, a lot of people are like, "How did you do that so fast?" So, like, when we did the Trump movie, the assassination happened while we were shooting, I believe. So we were able to incorporate that into the interviews. Like, if you see the Hulk Hogan interview in that film, we actually had some friction about using his footage because when we made that film, he revealed part of himself that he had never revealed, that emotional side of him. And it was just incredible because we were asking him things that were going on right then. So political filmmaking, I do love it. I do love it for that reason, but it's very polarizing, you know, and I wanna get back to sort of the essence of why I fell in love with movies, which is just the human face, which is like 2 adults in conflict with each other, you know, and the struggle in their face and just the human struggle. That's why I wanted to do it. I was 10 years old watching films by like Ingmar Bergman that are like deeply philosophical. You know, I was like 10, 15 years old watching these films that we had around the house. And that's kind of what I fell in love with. So
That's
this
cool.
won't be the last. Look, this won't be the last political film I do, but I kind of want to do them in between the other stuff now.
Yeah, that's super exciting. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's really great to be able to, like you said, be right there at the leading edge, tip of the spear as political events and world events, history is unfolding. But for you, it's as much, if not more, about the artistic side, about the expressive side, about bringing real, more traditional filmmaking and movie making type products and or art pieces and getting them in front of the masses. So I can totally see that, and I can also see where trying to toe that line in a very polarizing industry could be very energy draining.
What's going on in Hollywood right now, in the film industry, movies in general, is that I think because of movies like Jaws, people realized how much money they can make on a movie. And once you realize you can make that kind of money, it changes everything. There's been a move away from sort of adult driven drama, which is the stuff that most of us want to go to the movie theaters and see, as adults.
Mhm.
Like, you can only see Shrek, that kind of movie so much,
Right.
and then, like, you get tired of, like, the fast editing and the explosions and all this kinda stuff, and people just gave up. People don't think they're ever gonna be able to get a movie, the kind of movie they really wanna see, so they don't even go to the movie theaters anymore, and so there's no supply-demand thing, and then the theaters are going under, and then now you have, like, Warner Brothers are sort of the last, I guess now I have more respect for them because I understand what they really represent. They're sort of like the last stand in cinema, and
Hmm.
so they're the last stand in theatrical exhibition,
Hmm.
essentially.
Do you
And
mind,
and
describing that a little bit further or maybe a little different way? What is it that
yeah,
they're doing that's kind of being that last bastion?
well, because right now it's the tech companies that control the movies. Right now, it's like Netflix, Apple, Amazon. They have a monopoly over cinema right now, and Warner Brothers is the last old studio left
Mm,
standing,
wow,
essentially,
okay.
and so they're the ones that are really pushing that we're still pushing for theatrical. That's why you have a lot of the theater chains hoping that, Warner Brothers does not get bought by Netflix,
That's what I was gonna bring up too. I've been
and
seeing news articles about that, and it seems like it dovetails right
Netflix
into
is
this
about
conversation.
Netflix is about to take over Warner Brothers, which would be the seal of death for cinema,
Wow.
and the reason is because once they take over, they're gonna wanna do a simultaneous streaming release. They're only gonna wanna go to select theaters, and if they control the movie business, then that's the end of the theater, and that really sucks because we need that community experience. We need to go to the movie theater and be around people that we don't know, that make us uncomfortable. We can't just sit in our house and stream and not have contact with people. It's like
Constant isolation.
yeah, so I think what's gonna happen is there's gonna be more people, like, pushing against that. You know how, like, records when CDs came, the record stores, like, you still see these record stores that are kinda holding out, and, like, I think you're gonna see the same thing in film. You're gonna get, like, these purists like me that try to keep it going, and so, yeah, I mean, that's where I have to see myself now as sort of like part of that movement. Now, AI, that's the other thing because I use it a lot. I do these tutorials and AI is an incredible tool and like on a documentary to research and like I hate writing synopsis and stuff like that. So right now I'm hired to write a screenplay. I'm in the middle of adapting a book into a screenplay and AI is an incredible tool when you're writing. Instead of taking a week to read a book, AI will summarize, just give you the info. It would have taken you a week because you're not using it to do the actual writing, but you're using it as a tool so that
Mhm.
when you go to sit down to write, your head is full of that information and then boom, you could just go in and do it. So, but the AI is going to change stuff too, but you can't come close to real actors and real nuance and life. So it's not
Mm,
gonna change too much, I don't think.
okay. That's good to know because I know that there was the huge strikes, SAG, a lot of actor strikes where they're like, "Nope, AI, they're trying to make us sign these contracts that allows them to take our likeness and reuse it and things. Or those are the things that I'm hearing on my end. I don't know if that's what you were
Well,
getting on your end.
actors should be very nervous. You can tell an AI actor, but still, the technology is gonna get better. Voiceover actors are done. I hate to say it, but I used an AI voiceover. It sounds like the real thing, photographers should be very worried, musicians, I can't see the director, I can't see my job being eliminating, but ultimately it could be, but unless you're doing a complete AI production, then the director is just sitting behind a desk sort of envisioning this AI world, but there's gonna be so many people who don't wanna do it that way that you're gonna need somebody to orchestrate the real life
Makes sense. Yeah. That synthesizes it, that brings it, puts that human element into it and translates it or tells that story.
into a
Makes
story,
sense.
yeah.
So, if you don't mind us circling back around, I know you're professionally moving away from the political side, but while I've got you here, I'd like to just ask a few more questions kind of in that realm. Maybe put a little book in there for you. So, you've probably worked on other projects, but The Man You Didn't Know was the President Trump documentary that you said in less than 2 months, it was start to theaters and right before the election. So, during this time, like you mentioned,
Yeah,
you were
we
focused.
got 75 million views on X, right before the election,
Wow.
after Benny Johnson and Elon Musk shared it. It was quite incredible. I mean, anyways, sorry to
So
interrupt you.
wild. Yeah, especially whenever there's like 350, 330, 350-ish million, 350 million-ish in the States, 75 million is huge, huge portion of that. So, huge kudos, massive success, and like you mentioned, you didn't necessarily work directly with interviewing Trump, but you had access to his family, his kids,
Mhm.
his advisors, the people that are in his inner circle, the people that are close to him, the people that he's helped. So, in these private moments, what is the single most surprising thing that you saw on or off camera that contradicts the monster that the media paints President Trump as?
Well, you can always tell a person by their family, and, Josh got access to the family, and, we had these interviews, and I gotta tell you, like, I've interviewed a lot of people, and I've worked with actors and whatnot and other politicians, and the Trump family showed up on time. They did their job of what was asked of them for this documentary. They incredibly smart. They seemed very humble to me when we were filming. I think I remember thinking that I was expecting something way different. I'm used to sort of like I'd work on these movies in LA, and these sons of these famous actors would show up and just start treating everyone like garbage. And part of me was kind of like expecting something like that, and that's not what happened at all. So look, I know Trump is like a three-dimensional person. I'm sure he hasn't done, everything right in his life. I think through him, our country is getting to a place where it needs to be, but I don't consider myself part of sort of the mega phenomenon or whatever that is. A lot of people like me, we just want a safer country, and I think he's a vehicle to get us there, and conservatives like to look backwards in order to move forward, like we like to hold on to the things about this country that our parents valued. And I think we like progress, but we like to hold on to these very important things that this country was founded on. And so, I think he's also a vehicle to preserve some of that because the world is moving like so fast.
Yeah.
I just like every day I think about sort of my grandfather, like, when I see elderly people, like, I don't think, "Oh, get out of the way. Let me steamroll past because I got stuff to do. Like, your time is done," like, "I'm just gonna walk over you." It's like
Mhm.
the elderly are like treasure troves so, yeah, just to get back to some of the things that their core principles that have been lost, you know? Like you said, you're a medic. I mean, I think that's like, I want you to teach me how to do that. Like, I wanna know how to help somebody, you know, like, with my hands to save a life, you know? Like, there's things that we're forgetting, like, that people need to know how to do. They need to know how to communicate with one another. Progress is screwing this country up so badly, you know? It's like technology, computers, this, that, but we're forgetting how to communicate. It's like, doesn't take a rocket scientist to see how our kids are suffering because of it, because of this like sprint towards the future. Let's stop and look at where we were and what we've lost and how we can integrate some of the stuff that we're losing back into modern life because
For
that's
sure.
going to make us happy. I think that's ultimately what it's all about is like we want to be safe and we want to be happy. And yeah, so the Trump kids, I felt like it didn't feel like an act. It didn't feel like they were putting on a fake. They felt like genuine people. They grew up with an incredibly rich father, but you know, they didn't seem like spoiled rich kids. There's something very humbling about them, you know. And again, probably not perfect people, but I have a good gut instinct about people and they seemed like pretty good people to me.
That's great to hear. Down to earth, and yeah, of course, we've all got whatever. No one's perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and we're all here working together, trying to hopefully make the world a better place, make the country a better place. And like you said, vehicle of change. He is a force that can help stabilize and secure our way of life moving forward because there is a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of change. There is a lot of power plays that are going down just so that people can hold and maintain power, but are very toxic and very costly and deadly for normal, average, everyday people like myself. So, with that being said, it's so bizarre that there's so much on the line, but there's so many people, kind of like you're saying, there's so many things that are lost. So many people don't even see and understand that. They don't understand how much has to go right to get a special operations mission to be successful, you know? And kind of on that same realm of thought is how delicate safety and security in the big picture world stage really is. How close. Sometimes we're just like a spider web thread, you know, or a hair's distance away from complete chaos, yet there is an adhesive, there is a glue that is still holding things together, but that it's not indestructible. It's actually very fragile. I've described it as bubbles in the past. Like we have a bubble where we are able to have these free thoughts, we're able to have these free expressions. We can do these things without fear of being attacked immediately, being robbed, you know, being extorted, being raped, whatever. You know what I mean? Like for the most part, that's what we want to foster in the United States is that freedom and that security. But it is like a bubble that can be lost with a pinprick, with whatever, and then all of a sudden, it's not that. It is chaos. I mean, we could point to so many incidences in current events recently, from the Ukrainian refugee that his neck was slit in
Yeah.
Charlotte. You know, we don't need to go down the road, but like it is like a bubble. It's very, very fragile. So with that being said, 9/11, that's a big reason I'd already wanted to serve, but that really just like solidified it in my mind. And it was with that belief that, hey, we're going to keep this acts of violence like this off of our shores. We're going to create this bubble. We're going to push this bubble forward and we're going to do what we can to try to, one, try to get rid of it. And two, at the very least, even if we can't get rid of it, protect the free world, if you will, as much as we can. So that's kind of like the heartbeat behind my draw to service. But what I realized coming back, and maybe part of like my disillusionment, I don't know, is I realized how much ground we had lost here in the 15 years that I was away fighting these battles, these different deployments, and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was
and another thing we haven't mentioned is just sort of that God is not central part of our life in this country as it used to be, and I think just